Hello, thanks for joining me for another round of meditation. Uh, Funny thing happened yesterday. I was recording my entire meditation session, and at some point it aired out because of low battery or something, and uh, it ended up deleting all of the content, pretty much like my entire video, and I was so disappointed because I was in such a flow. I said so many good things which I wanted to like revisit and you know uh, check out and whatnot. And it is what it is. I guess that's one of the core part of life, right? Like a lot of these things are temporary, and there are gonna be a lot of moments when things will fall apart for no reason, for because of accident or whatever it might be, and it would be out of your control, and you would not be able to do anything. And you can either be disappointed, sad, angry, or just brush it off and move on. And I'm doing the latter because there are plenty of opportunities for me, in fact, to uh, in fact record this. I'm so fortunate. I'm so grateful that I have option to do all of this, and in a lot of ways, just reiterating the same point from yesterday would be a good reminder as well. So, yeah, so some of the things which I was going through yesterday was how I'm gonna change my relationship with aspect to fear and insecurity. And to give you a context, like last weekend, I was just having a bit rough time because a lot of my insecurities sort of like bubbled up, and um, at some point I was so, I would say, uh, so strained in the sense like I was filled with self-doubt. I was filled with like so many various factors that I didn't know what to do. And I did end up like watching some of the motivational videos, and some of those kind of like stuck with me and also reminded me that I have started taking care of myself for a while now. Meaning, for the past few years, I've been working on my self improvement. I'm working on my mental and physical growth. I've been working on creating the type of life I want to be. And uh, it's a process, and it's going to take a while these insecurities might still bubble up, just uh, you know uh, coming on my mind, or just saying me that I'm not good enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough. But in reality, I'm already working to get better at some of the things which I know are my shortcomings, so to speak. But on top of that, one thing I realized was to face these insecurities head on. Uh, Likewise, face the fear head on. Because if I don't do that, if I don't face the insecurity, the fear head on, then it will overtake me, and it's gonna engulf me into its black void, and then it would be more difficult for me to come out of it, or it might take a bit longer time, but more motivation or more effort to come out of that black void. So it's easier to just take care of that insecurity and fear head on, and just move on from that. And it's more like, if you're facing a mirror, and the mirror is showing you, um, let's just say, your fear and insecurity in terms of some sort of dirt, then all you need to do is clean that mirror, and you will see that all of that dirt will be gone. And you will see the pure form of you. I mean, I tried to kind of portray and see if it gonna let you see the pure form, but time and again, those insecurities will bubble up. But the only thing you can do, or I would do, is to just acknowledge it and embrace it. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, this is coming up because of whatever reason, but this is not who I am. This is not what I associate myself with. I mean, I wear a lot of identities, like any one of you, and these identities kind of varies depending on if it's randomly assigned by the universe, meaning, my ethnicity, my physical appearance, my genetical roots, my family, my whatever. So those are all the random factors which were out of my control. Even my, uh, childhood um, was in a lot of ways out of my control, because my family decided where I would go to school, what I would wear, what I would eat, and what the belief system I would grow up with. So, up to a certain time, up to a certain age, those were all out of my control, and that's what I mean. I don't have uh, any complaints, so to speak, because I'm glad, my family took care of me throughout my childhood. They were they were always loving. They were, especially my parents were always, and still are always compassionate. Just love me no matter what crazy things I end up doing. So I have literally no complaints, and I'm super grateful that, I got a good upbringing, and good in with my definition. It's not perfect, like, nothing is perfect to begin with, but they gave me the tools needed to function in the society, and still, with their tools as well, I come short plenty of times. Whatever flaws I have, it's not their fault, it's mine, and whatever good thing I do or have, it's based on the roots they created within me. So yeah, so that just the random labels which the universe randomly assigned to me, and I have little to no control over those. But then there are labels which I have complete control over, like my career, like my job, like what I want to talk about, like the clothes I wear, like the style I carry, like the place I'm living in, like the environment I surround with, like the food I consume, like data information I consume, like the workout I do, and so many other variables. So these are all in my control. Again, it may not be like 100% in my control, but I have greater control over these aspects. And based on that control, I have adapted or started wearing these different labels. Some of those labels could be like a meditator. Some of those labels could be like an engineer, stand-up comedian, martial artist, archer, and you name it. Like there are plenty of labels which I choose to wear, and plenty of times I observe that the fear and the insecurity bubble up, especially if these labels um, doesn't sink in, or at least some labels doesn't sink in. For instance, I see myself becoming a professional stand-up comedian, but I'm not there yet. So one of my insecurity could be the imposter syndrome, that I'm not a stand-up comedian, so I shouldn't be using that label because I'm not a professional stand-up comedian. And likewise, it goes on, on other uh, factors like martial artist or archer or whatever. And again, the professional part itself is kind of vague. What exactly that means, like, I try to bring in positivity or laughter, if not positivity, at least laughter wherever I go. Isn't that what stand-up comedian does? The only difference is, as a stand-up comedian, you perform on stage in front of crowd, and as a person, as an individual, I perform while having conversations and interactions with different people. So it's again goes back to the label, like whichever label you choose to attach yourself with. But at the end of the day, these are just attachments. Uh, these labels may or may not mean anything, and that's where the insecurity could bubble up very easily, because if you attach yourself with a specific label and your identity is not linked with that label yet, then you would feel insecure, uh, as well as you will feel fearful that if you would ever be able to accomplish that. And those were some of the things which were going through my mind. And in a lot of ways, that's a good thing that happened, because that made me reevaluate like what are some of the things which I need to do to get rid of that insecurity. And like I said, my strategy now is to face those insecurity head on and tackle it, because my brain, as well as I would assume all of our brains, have capability to change the narration based on data, based on newer patterns. And in order to get those patterns, you have to feed the brain the newer pattern. And you could do that by trying to just speak out these affirmations, which may or may not align with you. Like, I can stand in front of a mirror and say, I am a professional comedian. I am a professional comedian. I am a professional comedian. And I can say that for the entire day, but that won't make me one. And my brain would still be kind of hanging on to the reality, even though I'm feeding a new information, a new pattern to my brain. But instead of doing just that, if I go to open mics and talk in front of people, and regardless of the outcome, if I keep doing that, eventually my brain will accept that as a new reality, and it will accept the premise and the label, and it will eventually ease down that insecurity and the fear and the imposter syndrome. So it all comes down to the new data. And there are a few things which you could actively change. You don't have to necessarily do it. For instance, if you are a pessimistic person, then whenever you automatically start thinking something negative, you can take a pause and take a deep breath and change your mental frame, and or even say a simple affirmation that I'm a positive person, if that's what you want to do. And over time that will sink in, and your brain will start accepting this new reality. And it's hard to say how much time it takes to accept the new reality. I bet it differ for different people, and it also differ based on the intensity. For instance, if you were procrastinator or lazy throughout your life, but in a particular month, because of deadline, you put in all of the work, yes, your brain will start accepting that reality, that you are a hard worker and not a lazy person. But what you do after that deadline is met is also key. It's also important, because if you go back to that habit of being procrastinating or being lazy, then your brain will switch back to that older narration. Uh, so the key is not only to do an intense work, but also to keep doing it. And that's the most painful part in a lot of ways, because uh, it's easier to just have a mission, a goal, and accomplish that, and then fall back because you have already accomplished that goal instead of like keep moving forward. And that's one of the reasons why you would see that some of the overweight people uh, set a goal and they accomplish that goal, and after that they end up falling back and gain weight as much as they lost in the first place. So if you don't continue to maintain yourself or keep working out every single day or whatever your plan may be, then you will fall back to your baseline, to your underlying pattern, and that baseline is what your brain goes with. So the best thing to do is push that baseline, push it to the extent that it will create a new reality for you. And it's not a new phenomenon. I'm sure, like, most of them, most of you guys have already gone through some of these. For instance, at some point you went to school and then you went to college. But when you were in college, you knew you were in college, not in school anymore. Likewise, once you start working, you knew that you are a professional employee or whatever, and now no longer in college. So it might take a few months or a few years to kind of tune yourself to from college mode to professional mode, but eventually you do. And once you start realizing that, you start changing your labels. But the key is to do it as quick as possible, and also to not just adapt to the new reality, but also to retain it. So it's a two steps, or maybe even more than two steps, because not only you have to adapt but retain, but also grow or improve. So you can build, or you can push your baseline to a different level. And the key to getting into or the key to adapting anything is to first observing how your brain operate, because once you figure out how your brain actually operate, then you can actually tweak it and change it to adapt to the newer reality, to the new circumstances. And once you achieve that, then you would be able to continue that new circumstances by retaining it and then growing from it. And there are a lot of tools available in the current amazing world, which will allow you to tap into that brain's operation and modify it. One of the best tool is meditation, because once you start meditating, a lot of things will emerge from your thoughts, from your body sensations, and from your emotions. And at that time, you could observe how your brain operates and then tweak it. Then, in meditation specifically, your job is to focus on one specific thing. And depending on the type of meditation, if you're doing a chanting meditation, then you'd be focused on a specific mantra. If you're doing vipassana meditation, then you're focusing on breath and body sensations. And if you're doing some other sort of like a visual meditation, then you'd be focusing on some sort of imaginary or a visual point of reference. And at the end of the day, the meditation is all about focus. You're focusing on one aspect, and while you're doing that, there would be a lot of thoughts and emotions and sensation emerging all the time, and your job is to equanimously let those go and just keep on focusing on one particular thing. And this tool helps because when you want to modify your brain, when you want to observe the operation of the brain, you would be able to focus on one specific thing or one specific task, and that will give a brain a new information that you are completely focused in this particular task. That means that it's important to you. That could also mean that your survival or your identity depend on it. because brain don't like conflict. That's where one of my other insecurity bubbles up, like the conflicts and the indecisiveness um, of some of the things. And I observed over time that brain doesn't like conflict. If you the best way to take care of that is to actually living your word, like whatever you say you would do, go ahead and do that. That will teach your brain that there are no conflicts. Once you decided to do something, you're going to do it. So that's the end of that. But the point being that the brain is like a computer, and you are like a programmer, and you are able to program the ins and outs about how the brain should operate, and that will change the GUI, the interface of your behavior, of your personality, and whatnot. And it would take time, again, because our brain has like different layers, right? We have a conscious layer and we have a subconscious layer. So more like, if I switch back to the analogy of a computer, then conscious layer is more like a RAM, which is storing temporary memories or temporary awareness, and subconscious level is more like a hard drive, which is storing the long-term data. So the more you focus on, the more you start changing at your conscious level, it will eventually trickle down into your subconscious and uh, override your older patterns or your older narration and push that baseline. So coming back to the tools with which you can modify some of these conscious awareness is meditation, mindfulness, breath work, uh, could be playing sports, doing a specific art form, it could be playing music or even listening to music at a different level where you are completely in sync with the music. And um, some of the external tools like psychedelics or cryotherapy or sauna, which could induce a bit of uncomfortness, and once you start focusing on those uncomfortness, you will gain more presence, or you'll gain more awareness uh, about the present moment, and that's when you would be able to uh, sort of modify your operation of your brain. But it's not easy, I'll tell you that. There are a lot of shortcuts, so to speak, but you still have to put in the work. It's If it were that easy, everyone would do it. Especially when it comes down to mindfulness, meditation. These are very, very tough practices because, in addition to not being easy, these are also boring. For instance, if you play music or listen to music or dance or do psychedelics or do sauna or cryotherapy, in a lot of ways you're you could enjoy those activities. Whereas when it comes down to meditation and mindfulness, you may not enjoy the silencing of the senses, uh, especially with meditation, because you're supposed to sit down and focus on your breath, not letting your brain get stimulus from other factors. And that could be so boring that at times it may feel that you want to stop doing it. And I would say that happened to me plenty of times, and that's why I'm not like super consistent with my meditation. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna give up on it. I'm sort of proud of myself that over the past couple of years or so, I've done over three, four, I don't know if it's 400, but 300 hours of meditation, and I recorded it, so I know I have a proof that I did it. But that just some of the times when I recorded it. There were plenty of times when I didn't record. I was driving and meditating, with my eyes open, of course. There were times when I was lying in my bed and meditating with my with my eyes closed, of course. And in between, I was being mindful at a lot of times. Like I said, like while driving, while maybe cleaning dishes, while cooking, and you name it. There are so many different times and places where I engrave these tools of meditation and mindfulness, and that sort of pushed my baseline of how long I can sit in silence. And even though I am still trying to learn or trying to get better at um, focusing on a specific aspect while meditation, because believe it or not, there are so many thoughts flowing through when I'm meditating, and some of those thoughts are amazing. It's super pleasureful thoughts, and it kind of takes me on this whole daydream, which is hard to come out of. So I completely get the pain of actual meditation, because it's that difficult, but it's doable. I can tell you that. I can tell you that from my experience, and even if you don't want to listen to my experience, there are countless people exist in the past as well as in the present, existing on this world, who have meditated for years, and not just in not just by disconnecting from the society, like a sage, um, who you would find typically in eastern part of the world, who just disconnect or detach from the society and go to maybe like a mountain or somewhere to meditate. There are those kind of crazy meditators too, but at the same time there are people who've been living their life and still meditating at least 1 or 2 hours a day for years, and you could see the change in them, not just at a personal level, but also at uh, at interpersonal level, in the sense like how they interact with the world, how their framework shifted over time. So I think everyone should uh, adapt these meditation practices, and there are so many different type of meditation that you can pick and choose which works for you. But at the end of the day, this is one of the keys to change the default operating mode of your brain, and to be able to better control the narrations, the labels which you assign to yourself, and manage your fears and insecurities uh, in a way that it makes you a fulfilling person. It makes life fulfilling. With that note, I'm gonna get started and practice my hour long of meditation.